have a relationship with them anymore. The only way to go about giving them that sense of security is to be proactive in nurturing a relationship with them, spending time with them, and intentionally taking an interest in them and their lives. Sometimes, when we're worried about making sure our kids feel loved, the temptation arises to avoid conflict or discipline, thinking our exchanges with our kids must always be happy in order to be loving. But the truth is that when discipline is done for the good of a child, not to relieve our own anger and frustration, it is one of the strongest expressions of love. Good parental love focuses on a kid's needs and well-being, not necessarily their wants or our frustrations. Is it possible to love our kids too much? In a word, no. However, it is possible to praise our kids too much, making them dependent upon praise or paving the way for perfectionistic tendencies later in life. It's also possible to foster such an emotional closeness with a child that he or she becomes adultized, more of a confidant and friend than a son or daughter, which can cause a child feelings of insecurity, as well as disrupt family life if the child receives an elevated status over her siblings or even your spouse. Plus, it sets the child up for a painful dethronement process in the classroom when she doesn't get the special treatment she's used to at home. A few micro goals for showing love include: nip power struggles in the bud by setting sensible limits and sticking to them. Limits nurture a child's sense of loving security and minimize those exasperated moments where you lose your cool and wonder whether you even like your kid. Make sure your kids get some affection from you every day. A note in a lunchbox, a hug, an I love you. Over dinner tonight, do some active listening. Ask questions, make eye contact, and don't interrupt until your kids are finished talking. Listening is a great way to say, I love you. Avoid making comparisons between your kids, banishing phrases like, why can't you be more like your sister, from your vocabulary. Macro goal, time. One of the best ways to show love to your kids is to give them your time. Time is priceless as an expression of love and as an avenue for your other parenting goals. Time is the glue that holds family life together. It's hard to know what your kids are facing in school, for example, without a little focus time each day. Plus, there is simply no substitute for your presence. Lawrence E. Shapiro states that a parent's physical presence is a huge factor in a child's ability to overcome the psychological effects of a trauma. But kids don't have to be in the middle of a crisis to need their parents' presence and love. And there is no point in your kids' lives in which they need your time less than others. Even as your teens depend on you less and less, they still need time with you to hash out the difficulties of life, to try ideas out on you, or, if nothing else, simply to know that you're available when they do need some advice. And yet, time is an issue very conducive to guilt for many of us. A horde of tasks and activities clamors for our time, and we just don't spend as much time with our kids as we'd like. But as easy as it is to give in to guilt, it's better to shake off our guilty feelings and simply resolve to make spending time with our kids a top priority. Guilt-ridden parenting tends to lose its joy and objectivity, which is never good for kids. Plus, the real value of time spent with kids has to do with focused attention, not necessarily with duration. In other words, while quantity is important, it's not as important as quality. Here are some micro goals for giving kids your time. If you're feeling a little stretched out, spend a little time evaluating your activities. Have you overcommitted yourself? In what area can you pare back a little? Maximize the time you have with your kids by doing some multitasking. Make cooking dinner a family activity, or turn off the radio in the car so you can talk to your kids. Implement a standing date with each of your kids. It doesn't have to be a big production, just a little space of time dedicated to just the two of you. Take a 15-minute walk every night after dinner, or play a card game just before bedtime. Ever think about a monthly family meeting? Try it this month. Sit everyone down to talk about recent events and encourage your kids to bring up anything that's bothering them. Case study. One father solved the problem of spending quality time with his kids.